Let's go for a drive. If you jump in a car, you're going to be emitting carbon, which contributes to climate change. That won't come as a surprise to anyone. But there's one thing you might not realise has an even bigger impact on the environment. Every year, the construction industry and the built environment pumps out a whopping 15.3 billion tonnes of CO2. To put that in perspective, we're going to have to go on a really long drive. In fact, for you to emit as much carbon in your car, you'd have to drive to Pluto and back more than 7,000 times. So yeah, it's a big problem. Here are 5 ways construction contributes to climate change and what we can do about it. One of the biggest ways this sector pumps out CO2 is through the holy trinity of construction materials: glass, steel and concrete. Huge amounts of energy are required to create the heat needed to make all three. Concrete is by far the worst, with around 622 kilograms of CO2 emitted for every ton of cement produced. Cement is a key ingredient in concrete. We make about 4 billion tons of the stuff every year. That's the same weight as about 700 pyramids. In total, this single construction material makes up 8% of global CO2 emissions, more than 3 times the total from aviation. Now, technological innovations are emerging which could reduce this output. Earlier this year, Swedish consortium SSAB announced they developed a fossil-free steel, while elsewhere, companies like Ceratec are pioneering carbon-neutral concrete production, and Stora Enso are leading the way on sustainably produced mass timber. But, and it's a big but, all these solutions are still a long way from mass adoption. In other words, we're unlikely to see any skyscrapers made entirely with carbon-neutral materials anytime soon. But a more modest and equally effective solution could be to reduce the use of these elements in more commonly used buildings such as mid- and low-rise structures. Stockholm's Wood City or Rotterdam's Sowa are great examples of how we can still construct big, quality timber buildings which don't have the same impact on the environment. While sustainable timber construction is a key tool to combat climate change, deforestation is still a big problem, which is only becoming exacerbated by the rise of urbanisation. By 2050, 68% of the world population will live in urban areas. That means a lot of forested land could be built over by new construction. Just look at projects like Indonesia's new capital, Nusantara, or the Trans-Sumatra Toll Road. They've both contributed to deforestation, partly in an effort to address urbanisation. But this problem is more one of planning. Think of the sprawl of somewhere like Los Angeles compared to the well-planned efficiency of Singapore. Cities like Paris and Ho Chi Minh City are reinventing themselves by integrating more nature into their designs, which could help strike a better balance of building homes and preserving the natural environment. And talking of cities, there's an emissions issue that dwarfs pretty much all the others: how we run our buildings. The energy needed to operate structures around the world makes up a massive 27% of all global CO2 emissions. Now, there's many factors that contribute to that, but let's start with a big one: the urban heat island effect. Concrete, asphalt, steel and brick are great at absorbing heat. In hot weather, that makes somewhere like London up to 10 degrees hotter than the surrounding area, and it means more energy is used to cool our homes and workplaces, which usually means more air conditioning. And AC creates an environmental double whammy. Not only is it highly energy intensive, but the hot air it extracts from the buildings gets pumped into the local air, contributing even more to the heat island effect. The good news is that there are lots of cheap and super low-tech ways to cool our cities. A 2018 study claimed something as simple as painting roofs and roads a lighter colour could lower peak temperatures by up to 3 degrees. None of this is really news either. A study way back in 1997 found that if Los Angeles planted more trees and had lighter coloured paving, residents could save $100 million a year on their energy bills. So that's cooling, but what about heating? Around half of all power used by buildings goes into heating space and water. A majority of that energy comes from fossil fuels, but unlike cooling, there aren't as many easy ways to reduce this kind of energy consumption. To be more sustainable, we need to make sure the buildings we heat are as efficient and well insulated as possible. Despite being mostly cold and wet, the UK has some of the worst insulated buildings in Europe, which means domestic heating makes up 14% of Britain's greenhouse gas emissions. The kind of obvious answer to this is to build better insulated homes, but we can't forget about all the buildings that already exist.
Schemes like New York's Empire Building Challenge are taking on the trickier task of decarbonising taller buildings by reducing their reliance on fossil fuels.
The Netherlands is even going quite a few steps further. In 2026, it's going to ban all new installation of fossil fuel heating systems. Last, but by no means least, there's the very big issue of how much waste the construction industry produces. 33% of all landfill waste comes from the construction industry, and 13% of that goes straight to landfill without ever being used. So what effect does that have on climate change? Well, to start with, it means there's energy being wasted on the production of unused materials. But there's a bigger problem with landfills themselves.
Landfill sites account for 11% of global methane emissions, which is up to 72 times more potent than carbon dioxide.
This may be the hardest problem to fix, as in many ways, producing waste isn't in the industry's best interests. No client or project manager would pay more for something than they have to. Technology is already making a big difference, enabling teams to use less paper and be more precise in their materials orders. And if we can waste less on site, recycle more materials and build longer-lasting buildings, we'll be able to make a huge difference in the effort to combat climate change. There's no silver bullet for helping the construction industry reduce its impact, but the good news is there are lots of small, achievable things that we could start doing right away. Don't forget that we're raising awareness of construction's mental health crisis and supporting charities in this space through our Get Construction Talking initiative. There's a video series on our channel, and you can find support or donate over at getconstructiontalking.org. And as always guys, if you enjoyed this video and you want to get more from the definitive video channel for construction, make sure you're subscribed to tomorrow's build.